Shalom, shalom. First and foremost, I want to say, Ka'alayim lo Yahweh, Bashim Yahushai, Bashim Harakakadash. Double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone. Peace and blessings to the hopeful elect. Young brother here, Shamash One, with another video. And Lord willing, it'll be edifying and everything works smoothly. I decided to ditch using screen recording programs on my computer. It don't really be working right, fucking tanking my PC's performance. But Lord willing, I'll save up, be able to get a higher scale PC whenever I'm able to afford it. But I'm experimenting with this new which is not really new to me, Audacity. It's kind of like a audio recording software, so I can record the audio track and then I could just put it in a video editing program, and I'll just put some visuals up. I'll probably take a video of Assyrians or something, I'll figure it out, But today we're gonna be getting into Daniel's 7th chapter. We're only gonna be getting into the Assyrians for this part, because there's a lot in Daniel's 7th chapter, and what I really want to do with this particular series is really like get into the nitty gritty of Daniel's 7th chapter and really kind of, dig in, look over information that I haven't looked over in a long time. And as I said, Lord willing, it'll be edifying. So without further ado, we'll start off with Daniel's 7th chapter, and we'll start the first verse. In the first year of Belshazzar, king of Babylon, Daniel had a dream and visions of his head upon his bed. Then he wrote the dream and told the sum of the matters. And which it says Belshazzar, king of Babylon. The brother here has son or grandson of Nebuchadnezzar. So I think Belshazzar was his. Let's look up Nebuchadnezzar. Let's look up his son. I'm pretty sure his son was his son was Belshazzar. Huh. I didn't know that. Was the son and crown prince of Nabonidus. No, his father was Nabonidus. I'm pretty sure. Yeah. Man, Google funny. But he was the grandson. That's who he was. Let's see, Nabonidus' son. Look up Nabonidus. Nabonidus. Let's see here, his son. Nabonidus' son Belshazzar. So I was correct. It's been a while since I gone over that, but Belshazzar is the grandson of Nebuchadnezzar, and Nabonidus is oh no, I guess he's like the grandson. I don't know. I'm not really gonna bug out over it, but he's the son of Nabonidus. And then I would like to know who's Nabonidus' father. But not really going to worry about it. But once again, it all goes back to Babylon. And those Babylonians, just to mention, they're not the original Babylonians like the Hamites. These are just Assyrians that took over, and they were calling themselves Babylonians. And I've heard the brother Rakam Mayam, I asked him about it, and that's what he told me, and he heard that from the elders. So slack it for that little mishap right there, but I'm just gonna keep pushing. I'm not gonna close it out over something small like that. This isn't about Babylon anyway. I'll talk more on Babylon when the time comes. But that was that, right? And why is Daniel under Babylon? Well, Babylon took over Judah. They spoiled the temple. That was the destruction of the first temple. They took away the goods. Esau was there and helping them out. So that's why he a damn devil, and the scriptures talk about his judgment. But that's why Daniel was here in Babylon. You got to read the book for yourself. Daniel spake and said, I saw my vision by night, and behold, the four winds of the heavens strove upon the great sea, and that great sea is the Mediterranean Sea. And four great beasts came up from the sea, diverse one from another. The four great beasts are four kingdoms that will be raised up and then brought down, that will be great in power and in wickedness. And that's a breakdown from the brother out there in GMSFAQ, the brother out there in London. And diverse one from one another. The four kingdoms will rule differently despite having the same gods. Exactly, because it's all the same recycled nonsense coming out of Babylon, the same kind of similar themes, man. Semiramis, Tammuz, all that nonsense, virgin births, and all that nonsense, man. Which we know the virgin birth, and I heard the elders mention this too. Basically, where you get that was Jake's. They were like mixing the Greek shit with the scriptures, and that's where you get that whole virgin birth stuff. But moving on, Daniel chapter 7 verse 4. The first was like a lion, and had eagle's wings, and bowed to the wings thereof was plucked, and it was lifted up from the earth and made stand upon the feet as a man, and a man's heart was given to it. So the first was like a lion, and had eagle's wings. So the lion represents Babylon, and the eagle's wings is Assyria, because Assyria, ruled Babylon. Let's look at the breakdown on the King James. When the lion had wings, it represents the Assyrian Empire, see Lamassu. When the wings thereof were plucked, it represents the Babylonian Empire who took over in the Battle of Nineveh. Exactly, and you can look at the Battle of Nineveh in 612 BC. You can look that up for yourself. We're going to talk about it again when we start talking about Babylon. Okay, so let's now switch gears here, and this is world history .org. Let's see here. Close this message. Okay, so this is worldhistory.org, and I'm reading from right here in the middle. Let me see. Do I want to read here? Middle Assyrian period, dominant power. Okay, we'll start here because we're gonna prove that first, and then we'll loop back and tell you where these guys came from. So we just read, right, when the lion had wings, represents the Assyrian Empire who had the Babylonian Empire in captivity. So Shalmaneser the first declared that Assyria was no longer a vassal of Babylon, which we'll speak more on that in a minute, and claimed supremacy over Western Asia. He fought the Hittites in Anatolia, which the Hittites, they're Canaanites, but they were not only in Canaan, but they were also in different regions such as Anatolia, which I'm pretty sure is Asia Minor or modern day Turkey. So Shalmaneser the first conquered Carchemish and established more colonies in Cappadocia. So these are Assyrians, or sons of Asher, and they're in Asia Minor. So if there's diasporas of Canaanites or Hamites, and a diaspora of Asherites, why can't there be diaspora of Israelites? Just a thought. His son Tukli Ninurta the first reigned 1243 to 1207 BCE, conquered Babylon, putting its king Bitil-Yasu to death, and thereby made Assyria the dominant power in Mesopotamia. He ruled at Babylon for 7 years and assumed the old imperial title of King of Sumer and Akkad. Alright, so, and that's from the Middle Assyrian period, which you have different Assyrian periods, like you have Middle Assyrian, and then you have the Neo-Assyrian period, which when they were at their peak. But we're not really going to touch on all those things quite yet. But we're going to start off with going back, because we just read that Assyria was once a Babylonian, a vassal state to Babylon. It was once a vassal state to Babylon, and then they took over and defeated them. That's why the brothers brought out that the Babylonians are just Assyrians, just calling themselves Babylonians, and they already kicked a lot of those Hamites out. So let's go here I'm actually gonna go ahead and get it again, which is very similar information, but this is it written in Halley's Bible Handbook, and this is page 209. Assyria was founded previous to 2000 BCE by colonists from Babylon, which they're really from the sons of Ashur, which we're going to get that to in a minute, and for many centuries was subject to or in conflict with Babylon. About 1300 BC, Shalmaneser I threw off the yoke of Babylon and ruled the whole Euphrates Valley. Then Assyria declined. So this is why it's the Middle Assyrian period. They had a up and then they had a down. And then so they ruled the whole Euphrates Valley. Then Assyria declined. Tiglath-Pileser I, 1120 to 1100 BC, made Assyria again a great kingdom. Then another period of decline, so up and down. Then followed the brilliant epoch of 300 years, in which Assyria was a world empire under the following kings, which that is where you get Ashurbanipal, and you get these various Shalmanasers, going down to Sargon, etc., which that marked the Neo-Assyrian period, which we're going to get into. But as we said, same thing here. Assyria was subject to or in conflict with Babylon for a very long time. So let's go ahead and get some info on where these Assyrians come from. Slack if it looks like I'm all over the place, but here you go. This is the book of Genesis chapter 10, verse 21. Unto Shem, also the father of all the children of Eber, the father of Japheth, the brother of Japh the elder, even to him were children born. Exactly, and from here, from Eber, you get the term Hebrew. He's the progenitor of the Hebrews. Exactly, that chosen seed line. And Eber, which means Ibar, which means from the past, because that was going into how the language, the Ibarioth, the Hebrew language is a language of the past because everyone was speaking it before the split of the languages. So the children of Shem, Elam, which are the East Indians, Ashur, which we're just talking about, and Arphaxad, and Lud, and Aram. And Aram is Syria. Okay, but the point is here, Ashur. Okay, so let's go ahead and get some more info on Ashur. Ashur, biblical character, which was a real person. Second son of Shem, son of Noah. Genesis 10 and 22, 1 Chronicles 1 and 17. Assyria was named after him, although the name Ashur is sometimes used to refer to the place where his descendants dwell. And they got other precepts. This is AmazingBibleTimeline.com, by the way. Numbers 24 and 22, 24, Ezekiel 27, 23. He is on the timeline of the Bible after the flood, after 2300 BC. I don't know about that. I haven't really looked into timelines with the flood. Biblical name for Assyria, Ashur, a city characterized by the mounds of Kalas Shergat on the west bank of the Tigris, Genesis 2 and 14, was the primary capital of Assyria. Ashur was a primary capital of Assyria back then. About 1700 BC, Bel Kapu founded the city. Afterward, the capital was changed to Nineveh, now Kul-Yunjik, on the east bank of the river, on the east bank of the Tigris. Okay, so this is where you get Nineveh, and that's why it became the capital became Nineveh, and that's why when we mention that with Babylon, they took over Nineveh in the battle of Nineveh, the fall of Nineveh. By the Babylonians, they took down the Assyrians, and they took the rulership. So, king of the Assyrian gods, Ashur was the father of the Assyrians. He gave power and life to every priestly king. A winged circle or globe with the human figure of a warrior god armed with a bow in its center was used to symbolize him as a great god, king of all gods. Look at this fucking vanity. We're going to get a precept for this. Also, Ashur was used as part of a compound name for various Assyrian kings. Okay, so let's go ahead and get this quick precept. This is a go-to for me. This is the book of Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 13, verse 1. Surely vain are all men by nature, who are ignorant of the Most High. and could not out of the good things that are seen know him that is, neither by considering the works do they acknowledge the workmaster. Well, this is really going into people, jakes. Well, you can also use it with heathen. They look at fire and water and these things in the world as their gods, but they don't acknowledge the workmaster that is Yahweh that created all these things. But to go back into it, surely vain are all men by nature or ignorant of the Most High, and ignorance means to be unknowing or not knowing. And these Assyrians, vain goes into like vanity or worthlessness, or in other words, worthlessness, or what's the word I'm looking for, or like boastful. And that's what these Assyrians were. They sat here and they crowned this Ashur, the son of Shem, as a god. They deified him, and that's what these heathens always been getting up to. Now that pretty much proves that. And once again, these heathen, the reason why they're ignorant of the Most High is because they're made to be that way. They weren't made to accept the Creator. Same thing as wicked jakes that look at the sun and moon and worship the sun and moon and stars and these things on the earth. The Lord planned them to be like that, man. It was all planned out for the Lord, for them to be the 2/3 to meet their end on this side. Okay, so that's that. So you can understand that Ashur was once a vassal, or what's under the Babylonians, and then they broke away, and at the capital was once Ashur and then changed to Nineveh. And now that's a perfect segue to get into the last thing I want to get into, which once again, Slovakia. I'm trying to break down the key points and give you brothers what you really need, and that's that. Not really go too deep, but we'll read here. This is the Neo-Assyrian Empire, or when they were under their peak. Okay, so under Tiglath-Pileser III ruled 745 to 727 BC, and this is after the Middle Assyrian period, which we just read about, where they would have rule, and then they would decline, and they would rule again, and they would decline. But now this would be the time where they'll start to get it together, when they reach their peak. So under Tiglath-Pileser III ruled 745 to 727 BCE. The Neo-Assyrian Empire rose, which differed from the first in its greater consolidation. For the first time in history, the idea of centralization was introduced into politics. The conquered provinces were organized into an elaborate bureaucracy, with each district paying a fixed tribute and providing a military contingent. So they had a fixed tribute system in each of their districts, where would give them military, give them military provisions, give them, their might. The Assyrian forces became a standing army, creating an irresistible fighting machine. Assyrian policy became geared towards conquering the known world. With this goal in mind, Tiglath-Pileser III secured the high roads of commerce to the Mediterranean, together with the Phoenician seaports, and then made himself master of Babylonia. In 729 BCE, the summit of his ambition was attained, and he was invested with the sovereignty of Asia and the holy city of Babylon. Whoops, let me get my charger here. I should probably read back a little bit, because I'm pretty sure that was probably really loud, and I did not mean to do that. I really didn't mean to do that at all. So forgive me, brothers. So yeah, and it says here the Phoenician seaports. We'll read it again. Tiglath-Pileser III secured the high roads of commerce to the Mediterranean, together with the Phoenician seaports, because those Hamites down there, those Canaanites, were known for traveling. Tyre, Sidon. You can read about that in Ezekiel the 27th chapter. It goes into that, how they were known for their seas, for their sea travel. They were actually called the Babylon of the sea, like Tyre, Sidon. They were called the Babylon of the sea. So Slovakia. together with the Phoenician seaports, and then made himself master of Babylonia. In 729 BC, the summit of his ambition was attained, and he was invested with the sovereignty of the Asia in the holy city of Babylon. With his conquest of Israel in 745 to 727 BC, the first wave of Israelite deportations had begun. So I want to get a quick source on that. So this is Halley's Bible Handbook, page 208, Captivity of Israel by Assyria, 721 BC, which it fits exactly what we just read. Hosea 720 to 721 BC, the last king of Israel reigned 9 years. He paid tribute to the king of Assyria, but made a secret alliance with the king of Egypt. Then came the Assyrians, and administered the final death blow to the northern kingdom. Samaria fell, and his people followed the rest of Israel into captivity. The prophets at that time were Hosea, Isaiah, and Micah. The northern kingdom lasted about 200 years. Every one of its 19 kings have walked in the sins of Jeroboam, its founder. The Most High had sent prophet after prophet and judgment after judgment in an effort to turn the nation back from its sins, but in vain. Israel was joined to its idols, which that goes into that too. Leave Ephraim alone. He is gone. Roughly quoting, But at least let Ephraim alone. Just leave him alone, man. Because we know Ephraim was the head of the northern kingdom. But in vain, Israel was joined to his idols. There was no remedy, and the wrath of the Most High arose and removed Israel out of the land. Which this book here, they say God, but God, the Most High. We know the real name is Yahweh. The true name. And actually got here captivity Israel. Archaeological note: the king of Assyria besieged Samaria 3 years and took it and carried Israel away and brought men from Babylon and placed them in the cities of Samaria, which as you read here, the Israelite deportation, which this is all in second. This is what is this? Second Kings. This is Second Kings. I'm pretty sure it's the 17th chapter, so you can really go read it for yourself. But to read more, because they deported them, right? They deported. Basically, Assyria came in. They Shalmaneser the fifth, he started it, and Sargon the second, because Shalmaneser the fifth, he died midway through the siege, and then Sargon the second, he continued it, and basically they removed the northern kingdom out of it, and out of Israel, out of Samaria, out of that land, and they put different heathens and put them in that land. That's why you have the whole thing with the Samaritan woman and Yahushai. She was an actual heathen, and that's about the basics I can explain on that. But Assyrian policy was to deport conquered peoples to other lands and to destroy the sense of nationalism and make them more easily subject, which, that's what they wanted to do with the northern kingdom, but the Lord had it set up for them to leave, that the lands, I can't remember where they put them at. I think they put them in Mesopotamia. They put the northern kingdom in Mesopotamia, around those regions, but they left those regions and they came down to America, and that's how they got over here. And you have Ephraim and Puerto Rico. You got which of course they were dispersed amongst each other, but stay on the safe side. Yeah, Ephraim in Puerto Rico, Gad over here in America, Reuben over here in North America, so on and so forth. And they spread abroad, North and South America, and Canada as well, the tribes. Assyrians were great warriors. Most nations then were robber nations. Assyrians seem to have been about the worst of them all. They built their state on the loot of other peoples. Esau was also a robber nation when you look at their history. Same way they are now, in the way that they do the robberies through the IMF. So nothing's changed, man. The scriptures say nothing is new under the sun. They practiced cruelty. They skinned their prisoners alive, or cut off their hands, feet, noses, ears, or put out their eyes, or pulled out their tongues, and made mounds of human skulls, all to inspire terror. So they are very, very awe-inspiring, fear-inspiring nation, which is why the scriptures also call America Assyria. And there's different scriptures on I think it's scripture that goes, Assyria wrought in my anger, which is that one's referring to America, and how the Lord's going to use America to be like the Assyrians, to put in work on during Jacob's trouble, to fuck them up, which is what they deserve. So Lord willing, you brothers will edify, and shalom.